So it's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and Hall of Fame promoter, Frank Warren. And Frank, first of all, you've just come off must have been a devastating defeat, not just for Tyson Fury, but for you as well against Oleksandr Usyk. But you roll straight back in just 2 weeks later to another huge event in Riyadh. Does that cushion the blow to an extent?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, look, we're in the business of putting promotions, and each promotion is individual. And the fact is, as far as that fight concerned, which was the biggest heavyweight fight of the 21st century, probably the biggest fight of the 21st century, it was a pleasure and a privilege to be involved and be there watching two magnificent heavyweights duke it out in a very, very close fight. And I was disappointed, obviously disappointed. I love to see Tyson come through. But look, it is what it is. And everybody has an opinion of how the fight was scored, how it was. I felt that he just did enough. But I'm not being, obviously not being a crybaby. That's my opinion. A lot of people thought it was the other way. Quite a lot of people thought Usyk won it. And quite a lot of good judges, including Thomas Hauser, who's a neutral, gave it a draw. And it was that type of fight. And most of the people who are outside of the UK, most of the people I know in boxing, they had it that way. You know, it was like 1 round or maybe 2 rounds to Usyk, or a round to Tyson, or a draw. It was a fight of two halves. It was a magnificent, magnificent fight. An unbelievable fight. And as I say, a pleasure and a privilege to be involved with these two magnificent gladiators who delivered for the fans in a big way. Fabulous fight. And so at the end of the day, everybody got entertained in a big way.
And now, as we said, rolling into another huge event, the 5v5 against your old pal, your best pal these days, Eddie Hearn. Everyone's really excited for that. One of the things I want to ask you, though, you've got the big heavyweight fight between Filip Hrgović and Daniel Dubois. Your man, Daniel, you've delivered for him once again. How likely, in your opinion, especially given Oleksandr Usyk has applied to the IBF for an exception, how likely do you think it is that that fight is for the vacant IBF heavyweight title?
Well, he has been suspended, Alexandra, because of how tough the fight was for 45. I think it's 40 days or 45 days by the commission. So he cannot be stripped at this stage of the game because he's not in a position to defend his title. So we will see what happens. That fight that we just spoke about with Daniel and Hrgović is a fantastic fight. The worst case scenario, it'll be an interim title fight. Whatever happens, if it goes ahead as an interim title fight, I have no problem with that. I feel that the rematch, and this doesn't, I mean, a lot of people will be pissed off in me saying this, certainly in the Hrgović camp and maybe with Daniel I'm involved with. I feel that it should be for the interim because I think that the rematch should be for the 4 belts.
Yeah, well, I think Usyk certainly agrees with that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made the application to the IBF.
Yeah.
But just talking about Hrgović and Dubois, to what extent is this not just an IBF kind of box off? To what extent is it perhaps a box off to fight Anthony Joshua at Wembley in September?
Well, it is. I mean, that's what everybody wants to see. That's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see AJ. I mean, AJ's coming off a really good line of form at the moment. He's looked very good in his last 2 fights, and him and Ben Davison have obviously is a partnership that's really working well. And let's just say how it is. Who wouldn't want to see the winner of Hrgović and Daniel Dubois fight? And I hope it's Daniel, because then it would be an all-British affair, 2 massive big punchers. Don't get no more excited than that. And whatever happens, even if it is for the interim title, that means when the rematch happens, it means that the whoever wins it will have to fight against one of those guys. So that's what we're all buying into. And what's happening at the moment is that the heavyweight division is lively. There's some great fights being made, meaningful fights, and and we're all cooperating to make that happen between us as promoters, managers, all of us. And that's the good thing about working with Riyadh season is excellency that, you know, we've managed to get everybody, you know, bang their heads together for the good of the sport.
In the spirit of that cooperation, then, is there already kind of a tacit agreement in place for AJ to fight the winner of that, Hrgovic and Dubois?
I can't go into that until after the fight on the 1st of June, and then we'll see how it pans out for there. But AJ's made it no secret he wants to fight on the 21st of September, and we want to see him in the ring. And it's great that he can be, if he is, he can be back here fighting in the UK on a Riyadh season fight in our own shores. That's brilliant.
And talking of the Fury Usyk rematch, we know that Fury asked you to activate the rematch clause. He wants that in October. From Usyk's side, does he now have to do anything to confirm that rematch is on?
No, no one has to activate anybody because the rematch was agreed. I mean, it's like you're either going to do the rematch or retire, and that's it.
But we know Tyson's not going to retire because he's told you his ambitions. What about Usyk?
Well, he told
Any
everybody.
chance?
No, he's made it very clear himself that he wants to fight. That's what he's saying at the moment. Look, I can't tell you what people are going to do tomorrow. I can only tell you, you know, what they're saying now. He's a warrior. It was a fabulous fight, like us. And I've got to be very honest. The amount of money that's involved for both the boxers is there. Having said that, they're both very, very, very wealthy guys. They don't need to do it. They're set up for life, but they're fighting men. And it was a close fight. And a lot of people want to see him dance again. Certainly I do. And I just feel that we're going to get something extra special again. That fight lived up to all expectations. It lived up to what we thought it was going to be, certainly what I thought it was going to be, and more. I mean, these guys, they never left anything in the ring. I was lucky enough to go to the dressing room, obviously with Tyson afterwards, and also to Oleksandr. And everybody, I mean, looking at them, I mean, they were spent. They gave all they could give for them, you know, from within themselves and to the fans. Unbelievable.
And talking of the rematch, is there a date in mind? We've been told October, but is there a specific date?
That'll be worked out, but it's provisionally set for October, and in due course, the date will be finalised.
And from your personal point of view, not taking Tyson into account, would you like to see any changes to his corner before the rematch? Because there has been talk about that, a lot of criticism levelled at the number of voices in the corner.
Well, there's been a lot of things being said, and it's like anybody who's involved in a fight. You go back, you review it, and the team will sit down and they'll work out what they feel, if indeed they feel any changes that need to be made.
But what's your view? Because I'm sure you've seen it back on TV since you were there live on the night. You must have seen everyone talking, sometimes over each other as well. What's your view on it?
Well, I was at ringside, so you know, in the 10th round, I went to the corner and I said, "You need to emphatically win the last 2 rounds," and he won the last round. There's no doubt about that. And he was, I mean, look, everybody's got their way of doing things. I would not have said to a fighter at that stage, if indeed it was said, that you were in front. I would have said to him, "You've got to go out and win those last 2 rounds." But look, that's me, and his team are his team. And let's get it right. For 35 fights, it's been successful.
Well, he hasn't had the same training team for all 35 of those fights, in fairness.
Well, he certainly had the same training. He certainly had the same training team since the second fight he had with Deontay, and they were, I mean, absolutely successful fights for him.
Well, he's had Emmanuel Stewart Emmanuel Stewart, Sugar Hill Stewart, the nephew, of course, of the legendary Emmanuel Stewart. May he rest in peace.
And
Andy Lee.
Andy.
But then his dad's not always been in the corner. Has that, not because it's John, but just because there's 3 now instead of 2, has that maybe upset the apple cart?
I don't know. Look. I'm not going to criticize Team Fury. It's not going to happen. Whatever will happen but it'll be Tyson's decision. Tyson, at the end of the day, is the guy who's in there. He's the guy fighting. He's the guy taking the punches, and that's got to be his choice. I've got my views, but my views are my views, and whatever I've got to say, I would say it to everybody to their faces rather than doing it because I'm on, we're all on that side. I will say it to their faces rather than be saying anything publicly, because that's not the way it should be done. We will sit down and discuss it. And look, there's a lot of things to be changed. And I'm sure with Usyk as well, there's a couple of things I'm sure he'll be looking at that need to be sorted out. It was a great fight, and we were all privileged to be part of the biggest fight of the 21st century.
Now, another thing that came under criticism, you'll be glad to know I'm not going to ask you about the kind of meat of this, was Fury's post-fight comments. I know you've already dealt with that on a number of occasions. But one of those occasions was your recent appearance on TalkSport with Simon Jordan. And Eddie Hearn, again, best mate, sticking up for you as always, said he believes Simon Jordan enjoys people's pain because there is perhaps something missing in him. What do you make of that description of Simon Jordan from your good pal?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I don't want to personalise it. What I take exception, I think I took more exception to what was in his column in the Mail this week, where he said that Tyson has to prove that he's got to take the rematch because for the first time he's in a position where, I can't remember the exact word, like he's being in an adversarial position where it's not gone his way, and now he's got to prove what he's about, which is a really stupid remark because Tyson, in that first fight with Deontay Wilder, where he was an underdog, that 12th round, if that's not getting up and showing what you're like under pressure, I don't know what is, and being brave. And obviously the next fight showed what he's all about. The third fight, which was one of the best heavyweight fights I've attended and watched live, was unbelievable. He got off twice off the canvas to do the same thing. But prior to that, he's gone through his life, he had his problems when he vacated his belts after beating Usyk. Well, he had a lot of problems, a lot of personal problems, a lot of problems in his life. He blew up in weight. He was boozing. He was a bit of substance abuse, said a couple of things. And he was finally diagnosed as being bipolar, which is a serious mental problem, which used to be called manic depression.
Sure.
And he fought all that and come back. That is bigger than any fight. So to talk about he's got to go and prove himself like he's some schmuck or something, he's some guy who's just got beaten in a fight, having beaten Klitschko, the best of his generation, done all he's done, and fought in magnificent fights against Deontay Wilder, shown grit, courage,
guts,
true British, done all that thing. Same thing in the last fight. You're questioning what he's like as being in an adversarial position. This man is a warrior. We should celebrate him. This is bullshit. I don't even like hearing this stuff, and I don't know where they are. He hasn't got to prove anything to anybody. He's proved that by being underdogs against Klitschko, underdogs against Deontay Wilder twice, and in real wars, tough fights, and certainly on Saturday, in an epic fight where epic fights take two fighters to make an epic fight, two fighters, where these guys bared their soul. And at the end of the fight, you started off by saying, Dan, things said, actions speak louder than words. After that fight, those fighters embraced themselves. They appreciated what they delivered. And Tyson must have kissed him about 3 or 4 times, because that was the respect they had for each other. And if you're getting upset because Tyson says these things, as they said, if he says these disgusting things like you're a sausage, you're a middleweight, you're a dosser, I mean, come on, Muhammad Ali called people Uncle Toms. White people are the devil. Parrots shouldn't, white people and black people shouldn't interact or race. When he was younger, by the way, and became a banner of peace and love, and became an iconic figure in sport, who I love dearly. I can remember Joe Kawasaki fighting Bernard Hopkins, another fighter that I love, where he said, "No white man's going to beat me." But you know what? People say things. They say things. Sometimes it's in the, and it might, we don't like it. we don't like it, whatever. But you know what? These guys are extraordinary people, extraordinary sportsmen. They're not kicking a football. They're not hitting a ball. They're punching each other. They're fighting. Immediately after a fight, they get a microphone stuck up their nose. And if Tyson Fury doesn't want to speak to anybody because he feels these people have an agenda, that's his choice. That's his privilege to do it. He's not. He has nothing in his contract that says you have to speak to a radio station or certain journalists. And if he said things in the past which have been a result of his bipolar, and as I say, if you go on the NHS site and you read what the symptoms are, you can see where it is and where it comes from. He's been an inspiration for mental health. This guy was brave. He come out and said, "I've got bipolar," and he's the heavyweight champion of the world. He said, you could have a mental problem. I'm telling you, I've been there, I've done it. And this is and you can beat it if you try, or you can control it. Take your hat off to him. Don't keep slagging him off. He's a great, magnificent warrior. One of our best ever fighters, by far. By far.
Well, I'm going to take that as a pretty clear agreement with Eddie Hearn's comments on Simon Jordan. However, Eddie made some other comments to my colleague Eamon Khan today, which I don't think you're going to agree with quite so heartily. He said that while he's always felt that Anthony Joshua has the beating of Tyson Fury, watching the fight with Usyk has convinced him that AJ will stop or knock out Fury now. What do you make of that with your best mate?
Well, what I do is I look at what I see. I watch the fight, which is a very close fight. So, you know, some people may have given it to Usyk, some may have given it a draw, like Thomas Hauser, who's a neutral, gave it as a draw. And a lot of people I've spoken to in America who had a neutral perspective said that. There weren't a lot in it. I felt he nicked it by a round, and I don't mean nicked it. And I think you can look at that either way. But I'll tell you what, he beat AJ. There was no dispute about it. And Tyson gave him his toughest fight, as he gave Tyson his toughest fight. And what a great fight down the road. If these guys still want to do this, because at this stage of the game, fights like this, at the age they are fights that could have life-changing consequences. And it's all very well, you know, Simon saying he's got to do this rematch, otherwise it's all over. You know, was it all over for Muhammad Ali when he lost to an 8-fight novice in Leon Spinks?
Yeah.
Was it all over when and a legend? And was it all over when Lennox Lewis got beat by Ruckman, when he got beat by Oliver McCall, when he had 2 fights with another great cruiserweight who is a fag paper in that fight, I felt, with both those fights, Van der Holen. And let me say, and I loved Alex, you know, Lennox is a legend. These guys are legends. You're losing a magnificent fight like that, and reporters like Oliver Hawke saying that proves he's not one of the greats. What planet you on? What more can you give? What more can you drag up? These guys have got courage that none of these fuckers ever could get from any sportsman. You know, Tyson is a out and out warrior. You can have all your opinions, whatever you want to feel about him, but you can't take away what he is, which is a warrior. And you know, Eddie's entitled to his opinion. He's obviously, his man is AJ. I get that and understand that. AJ's on a run. He's had a couple of routes, as I mentioned earlier, and I appreciate that. And I spoke to him for the first time since he was a kid in the last few days, and it's a pleasure to do so. And it's nice sometimes, with all what's happened because of Riyadh season, His Excellency, that we actually are having some dialogue. But we're still competitors. We still believe in our respective boxers, charges, whatever you want to call them. And that's what we're all about. We're competitive people in a competitive sport. But these fights are getting made. And for me, nobody should ever criticize Tyson Fury. I mean, some of those guys and some of those feature writers who dip in the sport when it suits, you never see them at any shows except they show up on the night. And you know what they all are? They're all experts of every single sport. They're all great writers. Don't get me wrong. Real good quality writers. But they don't make them an expert in everything they write about. They have an opinion, and that's what they do. And God bless them, I understand that. But that don't make them experts. And as I said in an earlier interview in the week, I know fuck all, most of them, about boxing. And that's the truth. And I don't mean that being disrespectful. That's me without me filtering it. You know, that's me letting my filter in. Because there's times like you do, you probably interview people and think, well, he's a bit of a prick, and vice versa. But we don't say it.
Never you, Frank.
Because we're not, you know, because we don't suffer from a mental situation or a bipolar where you just say what's in your head. And you know what's, maybe sometimes it's a good thing to say what's in your head rather than being frustrated and saying, you put down the phone, did you hear that, jerk off? You know, all I was saying about Tyson when I was doing that thing with Simon on the radios, I hear what you're saying. And some of those things, it's not all the time, some of those rare things that you said, I can understand where people come from, but understand and prefix it by where we are. But you look at all the comments he made after that fight about two guys in there, their families, going home to their families, you know, being in there, you know, hopefully they come out the fight healthily and so forth. They were all good things. There was a lot of good things. And that's why I thought Thomas House's piece this week in Boxing News was a good piece. It was a well-balanced article from somebody who has knowledge of the sport and a passion and loves for the sport.
You and Eddie Hearn will certainly not agree on the view of Thomas Hauser, although we really like him. I'm just going to ask you
No,
two.
look, no. I hear that, and I've seen their stuff that went on. I'm not commenting about it. I'm talking about the specific issue that I'm involved with Tyson. And I thought as a neutral he got it right. And I've known Thomas for a long time. I've got utmost respect for him, irrespective of all that other stuff. That's not my business. That's their business. I don't care. And by the way, and I'll prefix that as well by, you know, Eddie. I've never spoke to Eddie for ever for the last couple of months. But in meeting with him and speaking about boxing, he's as passionate as I am. My son George and him have got an excellent relationship. And we're all passionate about what we do. And the good thing is these fights are happening at the moment. So I'm not in any way about to try and jeopardize that. I like where we're all at the moment. And the best fighters will come through. The best fighters will fight each other, which is what's happening. And that is what this is all about.
Good stuff. Now, in the spirit of getting you home at a decent hour, I'm only going to ask you about two more things. One of which is the fight you announced a couple of days ago, I think, between Joyce and Dereck Chisora. It's going to be a crowd-pleasing fight. It's going to do great commercial business. I'm sure it'll be entertaining to watch. Was there any kind of, I don't know, consideration on your part of the stage they're both at in their career? Because people have been calling for Chisora to retire for a number of years. Joyce perhaps after the Zhang back-to-back defeats as well. Does that come into your mind?
Look, they're not young fighters. As far as Joe's concerned, he hasn't got a lot of miles on the clock. He's not had a lot of professional fights, and he got beat by a really good fighter. There's no doubt about that. He's had a win coming back. Hopefully, he get his mojo back. Regarding Dereck, I actually said to him he should retire. I've said that, but he's carrying on. He's licensed, and he wants to fight. Joe wants to fight, and it's made. And the loser of that fight is done. He's done. He ain't going to get back into the as I always say, back to the big table. And depends how the winner wins as well. But these guys, you know, they're fighting men, and they're at a position in their life where, you know, they're in the latter stages of their career. If you look at the heavyweight division, I think there's only one or two fighters in the top 12 who are under the age of 30.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that includes them, and they both want it, and we will see. On paper, I think that Joe is favourite, but these guys, they know what's on the line. This is an important fight for both of them, and see where they go with it.
Just to pick up on what you said there, you've told Chisora in the past to retire. I'm sure you're not the only one. But you've effectively, as Queensberry, offered him this fight, which is going to encourage him to carry on. Is that
no,
just
he asked
your
for
man first?
No, he asked for the fight.
Yeah, okay. So, but
he asked me. He asked me to. He turned professional with me in 2007. So that's 17 years ago. He's going to fight on. He said he's made that very clear. and he's going to fight them. And I think this fight, as I said, these two guys at the stage of their career they're at, the age they're at, I think this is a fight where if they're not going to, if one of them is not going to retire at his own volition, this fight will retire one of them.
So you're kind of doing him a favour.
No, I'm not doing a favour. I mean, he's going to earn
if he
some
loses.
money. For me,
I mean,
I think Joe is the favourite for the fight, and you know, Joe's been he's been fabulous with us, and Dereck is what he is. He's a warrior. He comes to fight. This is no easy job for either of them. It's a fight that apparently they agreed 4 years ago and never happened. So let's see what happens.
Good stuff. Now, just finally, there's a big fight this weekend on DAZN. I'm sure you've got a pretty good relationship with them now, between Jack Catterall and Josh Taylor. Controversial first time round, so they're going in again for their rematch. Who do you fancy to come out on top? And you've got Pierce O'Leary, of course, in the same weight division. Is he kind of knocking on the door?
He's not knocking on the door. I think he kicked the door in after his last performance, and he's got a big fight which we're going to announce in the next week in Belfast. As far as the guys are concerned, what is it, 2 years now since that decision? It's sort of time's gone on a bit. I thought Jack won the first fight. It'd be interesting to see now where we go. I mean, Jack was with me, and we got him into the #1 spot. He was #1, I think, in the WBO. I always felt he was a really good fighter, and obviously with his opponent, I don't know. You know, you hear all these things behind the scenes about them and so forth. This again is a crossroad fight. The winner of this goes on. Josh can't afford to lose it. He just can't afford to lose it. He can't afford to lose this fight. If Jack loses, I think he can still, because he's not champion, come back into it. But not Josh. You know, I mean, he's magnificent what he done. He won all those belts.
Undisputed at 140.
Undisputed. I mean, that was something special, that was. So can he get himself back in the groove? We will find out. It's a very, very, it was a controversial fight. It's a fight that everybody's been waiting for, and it's sold out up there. So we're going to see, it's going to be brilliant atmosphere, and I think we're going to see something a little bit special.
Gun to your head, metaphorically only, don't get PTSD. Who wins?
I've got to lean towards Jack. Having said that, let's see what Josh brings back, what he brings with him. I mean, you know, on his last, if he fights like he did last time, then I've got to fancy Jack. Can he change his game plan? That's what's so intriguing about this fight. It's like all these fights. It's like Tyson and Usyk. They go away from this fight. Now they watch it, look it back. What can I do to change the result? What can I do better? And you only find out when they both get in the ring and the first bell goes.
With that in mind, sorry, I know I said that was the last one. What does Fury need to do, in your opinion? I know you're not in the training team, but you've been around for decades in the sport. What does Fury need to do to secure victory next time?
I think he needs to keep using that jab. Every time he put Oleksandr on the back foot, he negated a lot of the stuff he'd done. And it was a fight of two halves for me. And certainly with those uppercuts that he was throwing, he caught him with, he was catching him with those, some good body shots, but the uppercuts definitely gave him a lot of problems. And the end of that 6th or 7th round, when he went back to that corner, I mean, he was struggling until he kissed the crucifix.
Yeah. Well, God's there for all of us, isn't he, I suppose?
Well, there you go.
Frank, really appreciate it. I hope you don't take too long getting back. Dan. And a safe journey out to Riyadh.
Thank you, my old son. And I'll speak to you probably when we're out there.
Lovely. Cheers, mate. Take care.